Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I request that I move that we recognize the Honorable Bai Sandra Sema of the 1st District of Maguindanao for her privileged speech.
The representative of the 1st District of Maguindanao, Representative Sema, is hereby recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Celebrating peace, celebrating hope. Mr. Speaker, esteemed colleagues in this August Assembly, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon us all. This month of September is being celebrated as the National Peace Consciousness Month. Last September 2 was the 14th anniversary of the 1996 Final Peace Agreement entered into by and between the Government of the Republic of the Philippines and the Moro National Liberation Front, under the auspices of the Organization of Islamic Conference, or the OIC. The aim of the 1996 Final Peace Agreement was to lay down the groundwork and implement the 1976 Tripoli Agreement entered into by and between the Government of the Republic of the Philippines and the Moro National Liberation Front to put an end to the conflict in Mindanao. The signing of the 1996 Final Peace Agreement in September 2, 1996, ushered in an epoch of hope. Hope that the blessings of peace and development will then start to radiate in the conflict-stricken areas in southern Philippines. The early start was very promising, with partnerships of the Moro National Liberation Front and the Philippine government therein materialized and established the Special Zone for Peace and Development, or SOPAD, and the Southern Philippines Council for Peace and Development, or SPCPD. With the leverage bestowed by the Government of the Republic of the Philippines, the Moro National Liberation Front assumed the mantle of leadership in the Southern Philippines Development Authority and the autonomous regional government. However, that era of hope was to be short-lived. Before the seeds of peace and development can even germinate and mature, things took a different turn over the 5-year period. The Philippine government proceeded to unilaterally craft the institutional reforms mandated by the 1996 Final Peace Agreement. The autonomous regional government started to whine on the inadequacy of the fiscal support from the central or the national government. In 2001, it proposed and obtained the enactment of the amendments to the Organic Act of the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. However, by 2002, the Philippine government has already divested the Moro National Liberation Front its two major wings for peace and development, the Autonomous Regional Government and the Southern Philippines Council for Peace and Development. This development delivered a major blow on the morale of the Moro National Liberation Front. It seriously brought into question the sincerity of the Philippine government in the implementation of the 1996 Final Peace Agreement. But the Moro National Liberation Front remains steadfast and faithful to the said agreement. The leaders of the various revolutionary committees and organs of the MNLF were at a loss as to how to respond to the situation. It became apparent that the leverage of the MNLF was marginally displaced. Hence, instead of obtaining and benefiting from peace and development promised by the 1996 Final Peace Agreement, what is actually concrete before our eyes is that our people continue to slide down and be trapped in the shackle of poverty, lawlessness, misery, and hopelessness. The autonomous region, Mr. Speaker, never saw the light of lasting peace and sustainable development. ARMM is neither peaceful nor developed. However, in accepting the 1976 Tripoli Agreement, the Bangsamoro people has made this resolve to pursue the path of peace in defense and in the development of our land and people. The MNLF, which serves as the vanguard of the Bangsamoro people, stayed faithful and truthful to such fortitude. It is the Bangsamoro people who made such determination, and it is only the Bangsamoro people who can make such determination. The Bangsamoro is a very resilient nation. It has withstood 4 centuries of colonial aggression. It has continued since the birth of the Philippine Republic its assertion to self-determination. It continued to uphold the virtues of fidelity and devotion to the path of peace. But our resilience, Mr. Speaker, can only bear so much. By 2006, the poverty incidence in the ARMM reached 61%. 3 out of 5 in the ARMM are living below poverty line. 3 out of 5 in the ARMM cannot even take home a pay of more than 1,255 per month. 3 out of 5 in the ARMM cannot even earn a single US dollar a day. This poverty, misery, despair, and hopelessness in the ARMM are becoming too heavy to bear, even for a resilient people. Then, the OIC dispatched in 2006 a fact-finding mission to discern the state of its brethren in southern Philippines. Subsequent Philippines and in the MNLF to a tripartite meeting to review the implementation of the 1996 Final Peace Agreement. Under the auspices of the OIC, the Government of the Republic of the Philippines and the MNLF constituted the joint working groups to uncover the common grounds to the contentious issues in the implementation of the 1996 Final Peace Agreement. Before the term of former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo ended, and now an esteemed member of this August Assembly, the GRP and the MNLF has already constituted a legal panel to transform such issues into a legal form. A proposal on the establishment of a Bangsamoro Development Assistance Fund has already been prepared for submission to the GRP MNLF OIC tripartite meeting. The involved parties are now considering a GRP MNLF OIC tripartite monitoring on the implementation of the 1996 Final Peace Agreement. Mr. Speaker, esteemed representatives of the people to this August Assembly, the Bangsamoro people have already suffered more than that it can bear. Nevertheless, we continue to be hopeful with the solidarity of the Filipino nation. We can still make things right. We can still make things happen in southern Philippines. Mr. Speaker, millions of the Bangsamoro has been displaced by the southern Philippine conflict. Thousands have perished, both combatants and civilians. But we would like to remain hopeful as a people that one day we will see the government and the MNLF unify in its effort on saving and realizing the promise of the 1996 Final Peace Agreement. Mr. Speaker, the 1996 Final Peace Agreement is still here and still holding. Neither the government nor the MNLF has abandoned it. We are very grateful that the OIC remains committed to supporting the Final Peace Agreement. We simply cannot fully express our utmost appreciation for the unwavering support of the government of Indonesia for the Pacific resolution of any and all the issues between the government and the MNLF. The Bangsamoro people also cannot forget the solidarity of the Libyan leadership and the nation that has extended our people support. I cannot forgo further without mentioning that we will always be forever grateful to our former President Fidel Valdez Ramos, who early on in his presidency had committed to complete the negotiations with the MNLF. Mr. Speaker, esteemed representatives of the people to this August Assembly, even academicians may argue that the national government may not have the resolution to the Southern Philippine conflict in the agenda of the national government. However, the hopes have been reawakened with the assumption to the presidency of former Senator Benigno Cojuangco Aquino III. We cannot and will never forget our martyred Senator Benigno Aquino Jr., for he was the first Filipino leader to take up our cause. Senator Ninoy was the first to expose the Jabida massacre. He was also the first Filipino leader to carry the torch on the right to self-determination. We cannot and will never forget the mother of democracy, former President Corazon Cojuangco Aquino, who braved the Sulu seas and personally convened with our leaders early in her presidency. She was also the one who enshrined in the Constitution the right to self-determination of the Bangsamoro people. Under the tutelage of President Cory, there came about the institutionalization and establishment of the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. We owe much to both of them in the course of our struggle for right to self-determination. Inumpisahan ni Senator Ninoy, ipinagpatuloy ni Presidente Cory. Tapusin natin, President Ninoy. Mr. President Noynoy, Mr. Speaker, esteemed representatives of the people to this August Assembly, the burden before President Noy is not as heavy as those borne by Senator Ninoy and President Cory. We must also see the completion and implementation of the 1996 Final Peace Agreement. We have enough mechanisms and machineries to make things right in Southern Philippines. We have the Mindanao Development Authority, or MINDA, the National Commission on Muslim Filipinos, the Southern Philippines Development Authority, and we still have the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. Mr. Speaker, esteemed representatives of the people to this August Assembly, the overwhelming victory of President Noy in the ARMM is the most evident manifestation of our faith in President Noy and our readiness to engage him towards reform, public order, and sustainable development. We are ready, and so is our people. As I end my short discourse, may I appeal to your kind sensitivity, my dear colleagues in this August Assembly, to let us revisit once again what our government has agreed with the MNLF in 1996. I believe it will not be too much to make true our government's commitment to the Moro people. This is the least we can do for them, and possibly, this may be the best that they deserve. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker,
I move that we recognize the Honorable Gentleman.
well, Cotabato, Maguindanao, will the lady yield to some questions?
Yes, willingly, Your Honor, Mr. Speaker.
Your speech centered on the Tripoli Agreement. The Tripoli Agreement has been pursued vigorously by the Moro National Liberation Front and the government. And they have reached an agreement, I suppose, and that as a matter of fact, because of that pursuit, we have established the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
And the lady now is saying that there appears to be some deficiencies in the implementation of the Tripoli Agreement. Is it not a settled fact that with the establishment of the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao, the agreement has been substantially complied with?
Mr. Speaker, there are still provisions in the 1996 Final Peace Agreement that were not incorporated in the Republic Act 1954 or the Expanded Autonomous Act, Expanded Organic Act. Sorry.
Mr. Speaker, gentle lady from Cotabato City and Maguindanao, does the lady insinuate that we shall meet and confer or make a conference in order that we can, according
Mr. Speaker, would like to revisit the 1996 final peace agreement because the other party to this agreement, which is the MNLF, maintains that there are provisions in the 1996 final peace agreement that is still to be implemented. The reason why the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao is now facing so many problems is that because the kind of genuine autonomy that the MNLF has been demanding in the Tripoli and in the 1996 peace agreement is not yet complied with.
did not the MNLF, Mr. Speaker, the Moro National Liberation Front, accept as complete and absolute the implementation of the Tripoli Agreement when the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao was established and that the leader of the MNLF, Mr. Normiswari, was installed as the governor of the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao?
Mr. Speaker, the 1996 peace agreement, which was signed in Indonesia last September 2, contains the provisions in the Tripoli agreement, but some of these provisions were not enshrined in the RA 9054 that is now the basis of the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. That is why I have said in my speech also that the government of the Republic of the Philippines and the Moro National Liberation Front has been convened to a tripartite meeting in order to flesh out these contentious issues that need to be resolved by the three parties, including the Organization of Islamic Conference, Mr. Speaker.
Now, in simple language, will you please make as the autonomy that you said were not substantially complied with in the Tripoli Agreement. That is why there is still agitation from the part of the MNLF and, for that matter, the Muslim residents of Mindanao for a real autonomy. Now, will you please tell us what kind of autonomy is the lady trying to drive at in her privilege speech?
Some of the provisions that were still not included, Mr. Speaker, are the provisions on the natural resources within the autonomous region and the provisions on making first provinces or region will be able to appreciate the autonomy and not the kind that ARMM is right now.
In other words, Mr. Speaker and lady from Maguindanao, you believe that the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao as a government is a failure and that therefore there is a need to abrogate and repeal the law that establishes it because it is deficient as a compliance with the Tripoli Agreement.
Mr. Speaker, the Bangsamoro people in Mindanao have been dreaming of a society wherein they can also be just like their Filipino brothers. We believe the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao right now still need to be strengthened in order to address, in order to change, in order to alleviate the conditions of people there. It is here that I am asking our esteemed colleague to please help out their brothers in Mindanao so that we can continue to live like you. We can also enjoy the kind of situation you are in. That's why I am asking that we revisit what was the 1996 final peace agreement so that everything that is contained there will be implemented, and then from there we will see that a genuine autonomy can now take place in the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, the lady from Maguindanao, does it mean that the Muslim populations do not enjoy the privileges and rights. That is why they consider themselves left out and the provisions of the Tripoli Agreement is not complied with.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Now, can you tell us what particular right or privilege that the other population, Filipino population enjoy that the Muslims do not enjoy?
Pardon?
Citizens enjoy under which the Muslims do not enjoy.
Referring to the kind of peace that the Filipinos are enjoying. We don't have that in our area, Mr. Speaker.
Now, in the Visayas and in Luzon, except probably in the remote areas, citizens, Philippine citizens, are not armed. As a matter of fact, they do not have an army. But in that Muslim area, most people are armed, and as a matter of fact, they have their own army. Does it mean that this kind of the right that the Muslim enjoy should also citizen by abandoning the arms of the Muslim?
Mr. Speaker, about the provisions of the final peace agreement that need to be implemented is that there are two parties in this peace agreement, the GRP and the MNLF. The MNLF maintains that the kind of autonomy that is now being exercised by the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao still lack other mechanisms in order to arrive at a genuine autonomy that our people dream.
Now, when I asked you, Mr. Speaker, lady from Maguindanao, on what particular aspects of life does deprived of, and you said natural resources. Can you particularly describe what kind of denial of or unfair treatment in the enjoyment of the natural resources in the region that the Filipino citizen and the Muslim citizens are at loggerheads, should I say?
Mr. Speaker, one of the Muslim region in Muslim Mindanao is that this kind of autonomy deprived them of the support that they used to receive when they were still part of the administrative regions in early 80s, like Region 12 and Region 9. During the presentations of the ARMM in the budget hearing, they will be putting up a comparative budget of how much they have been deprived of from the when they were still an administrative region compared to now that they are under the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. Instead of the necessary peace dividends that should accrue to these areas, they have been deprived of so many other resources. I think it is the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao government that will be explaining to us during their budget hearing, Mr. Speaker.
Now, Mr. Speaker, lady from Maguindanao, when the autonomous established, Nor Miswari, the leader of the Moro National Liberation Front, ran for governor. In other words, he accepted the agreement as being complied with because he ran for an office, and that as a matter of fact, he won as governor. Now, when he was governor, that shows that what the Filipino citizen enjoy in other places has more than been enjoyed by the Muslim population, considering that you have a region governed by a governor in the Visayas, in other places of Mindanao except the Cordillera Mountains. We do not have a separate governor for different provinces. We have only governor for one province. But in your region, you have governor for several provinces. Is that not a fair treatment to the Muslim population in Maguindanao?
Mr. Speaker, as we region and history, what we have in the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao is a political settlement between the government.
Now, Mr. Speaker, what kind of political settlement was it not that kind of political settlement that North Miswari enjoyed as governor of the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao on a short-lived period?
As I have stated, Mr. Speaker, in my speech, the start was very promising, but along the way, there were some changes that brought about these problems that we are now encountering, Mr. Speaker.
There have been a perception by some of us that the Muslim population would like to put up an army for the defense of the region. Is that correct? Mr. Speaker, Lady from Maguindanao.
I think you are referring, Mr. Speaker, to the Regional Security Force.
Anyway, it is interpreted, whether you have a regional security force or you have a regional army for your self-defense.
I think it's a regional security force that will maintain or that will become the peacekeeping force of the region, Mr. Speaker.
We do not have such a special regional force in other regions. It's only in the autonomous region. Aside from the security force of the Philippine Army and the Philippine National Police. In other words, there is a third armed group that secures your peace in that area. Would the Muslims still feel aggrieved that they are treated unfairly with the ordinary Filipino citizen?
Mr. Speaker, I think the Regional Security Force is not a third army. As I understand it, these are some of the MNLF and the Philippine Army, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, if the lady would still further elucidate, there was a pronouncement by the new administration under President Pinoy in Muslim Mindanao will soon be settled. Is it not a part of that settlement, the segregation of some areas to be not under the jurisdiction of the Philippine government but under an independent state governed by the Muslim population?
I don't believe that that is so, Mr. Speaker, as the peace negotiation with the MNLF is still under the Philippine Constitution. I think there is no such thing as negotiation for an independent or cities to be under direct Muslim rule without the Philippine government overseeing it, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, lady from Maguindanao, when we organized the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao, there was 10 billion pesos as seed money to start the government in that region. If finally you will change the status of the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao into another phase, would you be able to find enough money to fund the start of your new government if you want to establish a new government as a compliance with the Tripoli Agreement?
Mr. Speaker, I have not learned of any 10 billion pesos seed money for the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. What ARMM enjoy is the appropriations given to line agencies that were devolved in ARMM and made as a subsidy for ARMM. There is nothing new. Everything that has been given the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao are all funds from different line agencies that were now merged under the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. There is no such thing as 10 billion seed fund.
Mr. Speaker, I was a member of Congress and as a matter member of the appropriation fund of about 10 billion as a seed money to establish the autonomous regions aside from the era and other funds that were put in the budget to run the local government units of that area in Muslim Mindanao.
I am very sorry, Mr. Speaker. As I have said, I have no information to such kind of allocation given to ARMM over and above its National
Maguindanao, Mr. Speaker. The Moro National Liberation Front, led by Norm Suarez, accepted the terms that is supposed to be a compliance with the Tripoli Agreement. But there was another group of the National Liberation Front which established the MILF, and this again created trouble in that area. Should we finally accept your proposal to revisit the law that complies with the Tripoli Agreement, would not the MILF join the MNLF of Norm Suarez in trying to solve the problem of peace in Mindanao?
Mr. Speaker, the revisitation of the 1996 Final Peace Agreement is an effort to finally settle the issue of non-implementation. This representation believes that had it been implemented in toto, what was contained in the 1996 Final Peace Agreement, I think the Moro Islamic Liberation Front will respect the outcome of such implementation, Mr. Speaker.
What about the Abu Sayyaf? Will it also join the MILF and the MNLF in trying to find a solution as a compliance with the Tripoli Agreement?
Mr. Speaker, I cannot answer as to the aspirations of the Abu Sayyaf, since the only revolutionary movements that I know of that exist in Mindanao is the Moro National Liberation Front and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, Mr. Speaker.
With this interpellation, I have, and I therefore congratulate the lady for bringing out this matter, because it is a matter of peace that will mean progress in that area of Mindanao. And that if the lady could help plot a course of action with the majority coalition in the House, look for a way it can solve the problem and make Mindanao progressive. With more congratulations, the minority will have to the majority. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, lady from Maguindanao.
Thank you, Mr.
Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the privileged speech as well as the interpellations, the privileged speech of the Honorable Sema to the appropriate committee.
Any objections? Hearing none, the same is approved. Majority Floor Leader.